I'm just in terms of kind of setting it up for why we thought Robert would be a really timely and good speaker for us. We asked you at our last session together how we recruit and how we select for early careers talent as GCG members. And the big respondents, which you'll have just seen on the screen previously, the main ways in which we recruit people are by CV and supporting statement and by interviews. So they're actually quite classical methods of recruiting people, and there's a lot of research to indicate that the kind of biographic information that we tend to rely on those interviews aren't necessarily good predictors or indicators of potential. What they are, in fact, is good indicators of whether or not somebody's been lucky enough to have great connections, they've got good family members, they've opened doors for them, they've had opportunities. And a lot of those skills and experiences can come from those. So we thought, well, this is really interesting to explore. What alternatives are there? What are the other things that you can do to select and identify potential? Who could we get to talk to us about that? And thus, we invited Robert. So over to you, 45 minutes now on recruiting for potential. I think there's going to be some really good stuff here to get us thinking and going. I'm looking forward to this, Robert. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, and really nice to meet everybody here. So I'm Robert Newry, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Arctic Shores, and we've been in the world of psychometrics since 2014. And actually in the German market, psychometrics is often referred to as a diagnostic rather than a psychometric. And what I thought I'd share with you today in the sort of 30 to 40 minutes or so that we've got, and I'm happy to take questions. I don't know if you can raise a hand or something that will indicate that you want me to explain something a bit more, but I'm very happy to add further thoughts based on any questions you have as I go through. But what I thought I'd cover today is, first of all, what is potential? It's a sort of word that we throw around. Do we really understand it? And actually, has the term potential changed for the future of work with so many changes in the digital transformation that we have in many of our businesses? The second bit that I would cover based on your context around this, Rebecca, is how do we measure potential? And I'm very conscious looking at that stat that of the people that we have on this call, that some of you will be familiar with psychometric diagnostics and some not. So I will make sure that I cover a broad spectrum there and don't assume a lot of knowledge on this. And then last, I'll give you a real life case study of the German company Siemens that we've been working with for many years, and how they've been working with us in the UK, Germany, and several other countries actually, in using our psychometric diagnostic to identify potential. So on that note, let's start with Arctic Shores and who are we? The first thing to understand is that we're the next generation of psychometric assessments. I'll explain what that means, but we don't do psychometrics in the way that you, if you have come across them, that you normally think about them, and I'll take you through that. But in the world of generative AI and ChatGPT, there's some really important things I'll be explaining to you as to why the next generation of psychometrics is really important with what's coming up. As I said, we've been around a long time, since 2014, and we've assessed over 3 million candidates across 40 countries. So hopefully that gives you some background to the credibility that we have when we're talking about this. And last but not least, you probably wonder, well, you know, what do we do in the German market? And we don't have an office in Germany, but it remains a very important market for us. You'll be familiar with all these companies, but we do both graduate and Ausbildung programs across the board for all these companies. You'll note that obviously 3 of them are engineering led, and that the sectors that we cover largely are professional services, engineering, some IT, people who are interested in a sort of digital approach to it. Engineering has been very interesting for me because very data driven. And so their expectation is, how do we bring data in to make our recruitment process more robust? I will add that we do work with PwC in the UK, but in Germany, PwC insist on screening 70,000 applications for their various early careers programs manually, and they have a team. I mean, you were saying earlier, Rebecca, on this one, they have a team in Poland whose lovely job every year is to be literally looking through manually applications. And I'll take you through as we go through why I think there's a serious threat now with the way that things are advancing with generative AI, not least just a candidate experience and efficiency piece around this. So let's start with what is potential and how you should measure it. We have this sort of big assumption, oh, we always understand what potential is. Well, I like this one because I think it lends us to why actually what we do in early careers is really important for experienced hire as well. Because in a world of digital transformation, we're going to be thinking about the skills we need in the future that we'll have to train up. So this thing about potential is really important. And so the analogy I like to use is that when we think about potential, it's roots, not leaves. And if you think of the leaves and the trunk in the tree is going to be your experience that you've built on the things that you have. And then the leaves are the hard skills that you've picked up, but they're perishable and they need to be retrained and they need to be updated. And potential then is the roots, it's the underpinning of a person. It's your personality, it's what you bring to work and your intelligence. Now, what's interesting is that we talked a bit earlier about, we could, we should get early careers to work with our experienced hire and talent acquisition. If they understood this, they'd think about how you screen and select very differently. And when we think about the skills crisis and the skills that we want just aren't available in the market, not just early careers are going to be thinking about potential, but I think experienced hire, normal talent acquisition is too. So I share that because the things I'm going to give you today shows how important what you do and how you do it will be, not just for early careers, but I think actually for the success of your company going forward. So let's think about potential then. What do we mean by potential? Well, I alluded earlier that most people understand that as being personality and intelligence. Well, let's break that down a little bit. So what do we think about personality? Well, personality really is soft skills. Some people call them competencies. Ultimately, though, it is personality, and you can use different words for this, adapting, delivering. But it's important that you think about the words that mean something to your hiring managers, not just necessarily the psychometric terms for this, but ultimately it's personality, soft skills. Then we have intelligence, and I think intelligence is really interesting because I like to talk about workplace intelligence. Intelligence is not just, are you good at academic intelligence? Are you good at doing exams? Intelligence in the workplace is, how do you problem solve? How do you think critically? How do you learn about things? And that's important because what we need going forward then are these things about workplace intelligence, not academic ability. Academic ability shows you a different type of intelligence, which is less relevant, I think, to the future of work. And that's important to understand. So the big question then comes, if this is our understanding of potential, how best should we measure it? Is it CVs, or is it diagnostics, or is it a combination of both? And that's what I'll share with you now. It's an important question to be asking yourselves, is what's the best measure for potential? So let's think about it now. We live in a technological world, and surely we should have a technological solution to how we understand potential. And this is then what shocks me, is that when you say to people, and I bet you all the people on this call now, do you think CVs are the best way to understand potential? Are they accurate? Are they objective? Are they reliable? I can see the smiles on the screen here, and there's a big no. We know that is the answer. We know that they're none of those things. And yet we still use the CV and the application form as our first screening. Look at the data you shared on that, Rebecca, at the beginning. 11 out of the 13 respondents all use this. And yet we all know that it's not reliable. So why? Why are we stuck with this? And I think there are two reasons why we're stuck with this. One, it's what we've always been told. The CV is like it's embedded into our way of thinking. And secondly, is there an alternative that is accurate, that is objective, and that is reliable? And up till now, we've not really been sure about that. But I will share with you that we do have the answers to it. I think the final piece around this, which is the big shift, and I'm sure all of you are talking about this, and you're seeing it on LinkedIn, you're seeing it in your companies, is how open anything that is text-based is to manipulation by large language model, OpenAI, generative AI platforms that are out there now. And just in case you think, oh, well, Robert, that's all in the future, is this a big deal? Here's just one example of a website, and there's hundreds of them now. It's called Sidekick AI. You can go and load in your CV, your application form. You can then go and put in the job description, the career site of Siemens, eBay, whoever it is, Adidas. You can load them in there, and it will give you the perfect response based on your CV and what they are asking for. So if that technology sits out there now, how on earth are you going to differentiate with people in the future if all applications look really good? And it's cheap, and it's easy, and it's free. And the other thing about AI is it's learning very quickly. So it's only going to get better. It's only going to learn faster about how you can do this. And this is the one that really shocked me recently. Is they're now, OpenAI have a piece of technology called Whisper, which enables the OpenAI framework to live transcribe your conversation. So to do it literally as you talk. And then there's a plugin here to, this is ChatGPT 3.5, and ChatGPT 4 is even better, but it'll give you a live, and it takes literally a fraction of a second, a live response to the question you've just been asked. So even a video interview now can be manipulated by ChatGPT. So this whole idea that we can sit and look at CVs and we can rely on is about to be blown apart over the next 12 months. So this is a really important thing for you to be thinking about. Yeah, Rebecca, I can see your hand up.
I was going to say, Robert, and I'm sure I've read something, and it might have been this version of Whisper that you're talking about there, where it won't just transcribe the interview question, but if you plug in your CV to it, your response will be tailored to the experiences that you've had as well.
Correct.
And the
Correct.
things you've studied or the places
Correct.
that you've worked. So it's completely personalized as well. Like as an interviewer, you wouldn't know that had been computer generated you know, was authentically their response, would you? It's quite scary.
So I think, you know, what this means is two things. One is we're going to have to find ways, clever ways of understanding people's potential using technology, but in a different way. And secondly, we're going to have to get people to a face-to-face interview in more quickly than we have done in the past. So that's the implications of this, that we need technology to do that differentiating in a fair, objective, reliable way. And then we need to get people, the right people, in front of a human interviewer as quickly as possible. So what is the solution to it? Oh yeah.
I was just going to say that's good news for all of us then, isn't it, as recruiters, that our human skills cannot be replaced that easily.
Definitely not. More important than ever. And I think that's the key thing about AI, is that it's how we use it alongside human skills. And I think that's a really lovely word too, Rebecca. I like human skills in this, because there is a difference between technological hard skills and human skills, which aren't going away. So the solution then to how do we deal with these challenges that I just shared with you? Well, clearly the answer is anything that's text-based, whether that's an application form, whether that is a personality that's question-based, anything that's text-based is not going to be the answer. The next generation of diagnostics around this is going to be task-based. And this is what Arctic Shores has been working on for many years now. It is giving people an interactive task. And I think I did see that FDM were on this call too, and FDM have been using this for their early careers for a number of years with us on this. But the point is it's task-based. So it is how do you respond to these tasks is how we learn about your personality. And ChatGPT and Generative AI can't cheat this because it doesn't know what we're measuring and how we're measuring, because what we're doing that is behind the scenes. We're picking up all the little different ways people approach these tasks. And that I think is going to be, something for people to think about, that you can almost like China that sort of skipped from landlines to mobile phones. In Germany, you'd be able to do the same. You can skip through, traditional psychometrics to next generation psychometrics in one leap now. So what's the key thing about this, the benefit then of next generation assessments? Because it's not just that it's ChatGPT proof. For me, why did I start the business? I started the business because I wanted to uncover potential. I wanted to find ways that we could learn about people in ways that sometimes they may not even know what their skills are. And that is a big thing in early careers that we all believe in, is how do you find that potential in people? And you don't give advantage to some people who've got money and can get extra help. So in this particular case, if we're measuring resilience, and that's something I come across a lot in early careers, and this lady here has a high resilience level, but she doesn't know that at this stage. She hasn't come from an environment where she's either tested her resilience or even people have told her that she's resilient. So when she gets asked in a question-based approach to this, she's going to give, well, what do they want to hear? Is this what I'd like to believe I am in terms of resilience? Or is it actually what I think I'm currently on this? And how do I compare myself to, and who do I compare myself to? And quite often you might get a result in self-report where somebody underrepresents, particularly women, particularly people from lower income brackets, will not be as confident and will underreport their capabilities. Whereas if you get data from real efforts, real things that they do, you will get their true, authentic potential. And that's what's as important to me as why I set up the company as it is that we can find a better way of understanding people than the traditional diagnostics. So for us, and back to your point, Rebecca, on this about human skills, these are the things that we should be measuring. And can we do it in a way that is fair and easy for people to do it? So you want from a menu of human skills, what are the ones that are most important? And how do we decide for different roles? That for a technical role will be different from a customer role, will be different from a marketing role. All of these things need to be molded and shaped for the different types of potential that we're looking for. And a good system will enable you to do that from a human skills and from an intelligence point of view. And then ultimately, as recruiters here, and we were talking earlier a lot about the ratios of one recruiter to 50 vacancies, you've got to be able to do this in a way that you can stack rank the people that are coming through and see in terms of their human skills and their workplace intelligence, which are the ones that are a best match. And one of the things that we've seen from Siemens and a few others, is to the point you're making as well, Rebecca, on this about time to hire. So increasingly, if you want time to hire in 14 days, you want to see as applications come in, if there is great talent, people who make a great fit to what you're looking for, then you want to fast track them through the process and get them in front of a human as quickly as possible. And I think for a lot of brands that aren't well known, like, if you are, and Siemens came to us, so they're not a Facebook, they're not a Google. And if you've applied to a Facebook or you applied to a Siemens, you're always going to be looking out the Facebook email and saying, oh, have they got back to me? Whereas the Siemens one, you'll go, okay, well, if it's an 8-week time frame for me to apply on this, then I'll check it, and you may well have lost some great talent. So that's why the stack ranking. I can see, Kerry, you've raised your hand.
Yes, I have. Just on an interesting point on time to hire. So we are currently undertaking some research with females who are applying to graduate and intern level roles. And well, we'll tell you more about the backgrounds of the research, but one of the things that we can see from a question we're asking about why you would ghost an employer is that the biggest reason is that the process is taking too long and they disengage. And so that's what we're hearing from, like you say, high potential women, those who are engaged with Grad Fuel, who a lot of you met last time. So, the ones we know are very focused on their performance, very focused, ambitious, and we're losing those people. So I think it's a really good point to make about time to hire, Robert, and even the communication with the applicants as well.
Absolutely.
So I just thought I'd throw that in there for everyone.
No, really good and great point. And so the point is, you need something, there's a bit of data that tells you very quickly, is this person a good fit? And then quickly, how do I get them through to interview on this? And it's so much better than doing it through an application form. I think the other thing that you want from a good diagnostic system is reports and help with the interviews. For me, what's really important about getting objectivity and fairness into the process is that the face-to-face interview is as objective and focused on human skills as the initial screening process is. And so you want that information to flow from the initial screen to the interview. And one of the things around best practice that we're seeing globally around this is that transfer of information. And it's important from a candidate point of view, which is when I sit in front of somebody for an interview, I don't want them to be looking at my application as if they've just seen it for the first time and have no idea what my strengths are, when, hang on, I've just spent an hour filling in forms and telling you about how brilliant I am, and that almost doesn't count. And so what you want is that the interview is as focused on the things that you've advertised and said that they're important, rather than just the individual questions that come from a hiring manager. So I think that consistency in using the data through the process is another important value add. And then ultimately, I think if you're unfamiliar with diagnostics, you want a platform that is helping you, that is supported by internal ways of using chatbots to help you steer through it, but also subject matter experts. And I think, you referred at the beginning, Rebecca, this around occupational psychology and business psychologists, I think are very important in helping understand what success looks like. So the ultimate thing is, hopefully I've convinced you at this point, yes, this looks really interesting, Robert, but we're talking to a German audience here, and we like evidence and we like data, and we want to know, is this just some sort of English fantasy that sounds great, or is it based on some real hard evidence and studies? So I'm just going to give you one slide on this, and this I can share the paper from you on this. But the Schmidt and Hunter study that was originally done in 1998 is talked about through all the academic universities, whether it's from Dusseldorf to Birmingham to Harvard. They all looked at this original study to show that cognitive tests and personality tests are a great way of predicting performance. This was then updated in 2013 with another huge amount of data. And what it shows you is that the more that you use what they call multi-measure tests, which is a combination of personality, intelligence, if you can add in other things around motivation, but certainly adding in an interview as well, gives you a much higher predictor of whether that person will be successful. And the least, and this is why I made this point earlier, the least predictive in this is job experience. Look at that, 0.13. all your standard talent acquisition friends that in early careers, on this, they rely on job experience on it. And yet the data, the evidence, and it's so compelling, shows that that is actually the least predictive. And we probably knew that anyway, but we didn't have anything else that we had. So this is hopefully one piece of independent data. I'm happy to share that with you, but this done on a huge amount of research and is done by academics, not by vendors. So let's go into a case study then. How has somebody implemented this, and what benefits have they seen? The problem, and interestingly, this was Siemens in the UK, where they wanted to employ an early careers type of approach to a junior role where somebody needed to have 2 or 3 years experience. So it's that very interesting gray area saying, and you were talking a little bit about this earlier, Rebecca, is this sort of gray area, 2 to 3 years of experience? Is that early careers? It's not really quite experienced hire? It's somewhere in the middle. Who looks after it? Actually, I think early careers can and have got a lot of value to add. But the case for Siemens on this, they had a vacancy for a project engineer that had been open for 200 days, and they'd had 12 applications. And when you looked at the job description, you could understand absolutely why. It was full, the job description was full of Siemens 3-letter acronyms about all the engineering automation platforms that they used. And somebody had to have all that experience. And I think probably there were only 20 people in the whole of the UK who had that. And half of them were working for competitors of Siemens anyway. And so they were scratching their head going, well, why can't we find anybody? Why are we getting so low applications? And it seems very obvious, but that is what a lot of people do. So we came in and just said, hang on, can you train people? My tree analogy on this, can you train people and give people all these things that you're saying, these hard skills, over a period of 6 months? And they said, yes, we can. We've got a very good learning and development program. We're Siemens. We're brilliant at this. I said, okay, well, why don't we hire then for potential and then train them up and see whether we can do a bit better than these 12 applications. And the managing director of Siemens was really interesting about this. He was completely bought into this. And he had a lovely phrase on this. To solve this, he wanted to, if everybody's recruiting from the same well in the same way, using the same bucket, then we're never going to, get an improvement on this. So we wanted to go to a different well with a different type of bucket. And this is where the whole hiring for potential, you don't need a previous experience, you don't need a CV to apply, kicks in. We took them through a 6-step process. I won't go through the detail of this. The important point about it is that to be successful in hiring for potential is not about whether you use Arctic Shores' diagnostic or not. What's important is that you have a process that is focused around potential. It's the process that's really important around this. And then the diagnostic and the technology you use should be to enhance that process, but it's process first, technology second. And we think this is a really important part. And I have a whole playbook that I wrote with 4 or 5 other companies, Cognizant and a few other software companies with their talent acquisition people as to how you can do this. And here were the results, which was really interesting. They were able to find their applications went from 12 to 300. They used a combination of application questions plus the Arctic Shores diagnostic, got that down to 60 that they then looked in more detail, and then they interviewed 8. And the interesting thing is that of the 8 that they came across, they could have hired all of them. They could have hired all 8 of them. They ended up hiring 2 rather than the 1. What was interesting, in the 8, one of them came from Kentucky Fried Chicken, one of them came from Aldi, which you'll be familiar with, and one of them was an internal apprentice applicant who'd come in through a sort of blue-collar shop floor program into Siemens that they didn't realize how good that candidate was. And I think that was the thing that was really refreshing for them. I think the other thing about it was that they got through no, and this was a big Siemens goal, so through no positive discrimination, in the 8 people that they'd interviewed and doing it through using a diagnostic, they ended up with 4 women and 4 men. And the other thing that was interesting is that when they showed the CVs of these 8 people to hiring managers after the process, separately from this, the hiring manager said they would not have interviewed any of the 8. And that was kind of shocking, really, to them, was, you know, the 8 were so good and they hadn't realized what this broader talent pool is. So the thing for Arctic Shores is, if you really get this process right and you understand potential and you broaden out what you want, and I think things like, you know, you've got to have a certain degree or a certain qualification. I don't think that's relevant now, because you've got a diagnostic that will test these things much better. You can uncover what McKinsey called star candidates. And I really like this term, star candidates. So these are skilled through alternative routes. So this could be people who have self-taught. It could be for immigration, refugees who come in, who've got amazing academic capabilities, but they're not in the normal German system, so you don't recognize them. There are so many. In America, I saw that the number of people through this was like 68 million people who aren't being tapped into because people don't understand what it means to recruit for potential and how you can do that. So I leave you then with my final thought, which is, how do we get from the 3 people in the who responded to your survey on that, Rebecca, to, you know, who only use a different approach, to looking and experimenting? And the challenge I hope that I've been able to give you with here is that it's not something that you can bury your head in the sand and think, I don't have to look at. You absolutely have to think about this now. ChatGPT and OpenAI and generative AI has changed the world around this, and you need to experiment.